Hi legends and welcome to my channel. Today we are going to dive into the crypto world, the blockchain, and we are going to take the two colossus and comparing them to each other, which is Bitcoin and Ethereum. And before we do that, we are also going to explain what is the blockchain by itself. So let's just get started. So for this, it's very important to understand first what is the blockchain. Blockchain is essentially a system of transaction that is decentralized and distributed among a different network of computers spread out around the world. But then, since there are so many transactions, of course, they need to be put together somehow. And the way that generally this is made is they're put together into blocks of transactions, which are usually time-stamped, and they are every 10 minutes, every 1 hour, every 2 seconds, and then they get verified. And that's one of the first differences between Bitcoin and Ethereum. This is block and chain, because one block after the other creates a chain of different blocks, so a blockchain. Of course, all the world needs to have some sort of consensus for which everybody agrees that the transaction took place and it's a valid transaction. For this, you need something which is called a consensus mechanism. And the difference between Bitcoin and Ethereum starts from this one, because it's proof of work for Bitcoin, in which miners solve very complex mathematical equations and give the solution as fast as they can to receive a compensation in Bitcoin. And this one is the proof of work. Whether instead Ethereum, despite it was born using the proof of work as well, now shifted to the proof of stake. And this is quite interesting as well, because the proof of stake takes like your stake as a validator and uses it as a collateral for validating transaction. Said very simply, it means that when you stake, you are giving your tokens and you're putting them on the line. So in that way, you verify transaction, and this prevents fraudulent action, for which, of course, if you do something fraudulent and you get caught, if you don't get caught, you don't get caught, but that's very difficult when everything is transparent. If you get caught instead, you pay penalties which slash your stake. So basically your wallet at risk gets a part trimmed out just because you try to do something malicious. This usually prevents 99% of the different type of crimes, because of course money is on the line. Now let's look a little bit more in detail at Bitcoin and then Ethereum, and then we will find some final conclusions about it. So Bitcoin itself uses the miners to validate the transactions, as I was explaining. This is made by solving complex mathematical equations to solve the block. You can really trust that Bitcoin is not going to be hacked very easily, because the whole world is competing to get the payout. So why would you hack Bitcoin if you can get the money anyway by just verifying the transaction? This is the idea behind it. And also there's a fixed supply, which is 21 million. It cannot be more than that. And there is a couple of other systems contained within it, which miners at some point in time, which is roughly every 4 years, one is about to happen actually, or just happened if you just see this video a little bit after in time. But there is halving, which essentially cuts in half the payout that you get by verifying blocks. Therefore, people need to be much more efficient in containing the cost of the energy, because the cost of energy is super high. Like the full amount of energy used to mine Bitcoin for a couple of years had been more than some countries' energy usage in a year. So it's quite intensive. And when this happens, of course, all the miners need to be a lot more efficient. And in theory, this also raises the price of Bitcoin itself, because of course it's much harder to get it for free. Bitcoin essentially being the first, it's designed for being a storage of value, so like a digital type of gold. It's not used in the other case scenario that I'm going to explain about Ethereum. So Ethereum, it depends on what you mean with it, because if you mean Ether, that is the currency which is basically running on the blockchain. and it's third to pay, and whatever is the one that it's maybe between 0 essentially and 5,000, or maybe it's going to go more in the next bull run. But that is the currency of what? Ethereum is a platform, and it's made and created by this Vitalik Buterin, which is a person. Therefore, this is basically a company. The aim is not to just do like Bitcoin, to just store value or NFTs minted on it. The idea is to create decentralized applications, or the apps, and all of this is governed very simply utilizing smart contracts, which are self-executing contracts that execute the code that it's been put into. Through Ethereum platform, it's been possible to create a substantial amount of different instruments. It can be finance applications, it can be gaming applications, it can be all sorts, and many more are being created. And actually, one of the ways that usually it gets considered as a strong platform or not, and many more coming, like Solana for example, it's how many developers are actually using this specific platform to create new applications, new platforms themselves, and everything related. So this is actually a better index than just the price to define the actual value underlying this asset. That's how I see this. So to put it together, the difference between Bitcoin and Ethereum, as you saw, it's quite substantial. So it can be quite different whether you want to store some value, so basically have your gold, digital gold piece, or your super secure NFT, but it's not going to be too efficient because the transaction speed is not going to be very high, and the cost of the transaction instead is going to be very high. Ethereum instead is just a platform for which you can use it either to pay or to get paid, but this involves the creation of a full world, if you want, at some point in the future, an actual metaverse out of it. So one, it's not owned by anybody, because essentially who created it never claimed this title, to also protect coin itself. So it cannot be really considered like a security. It's actually more of a commodity, if you want to put it in normal finance case of wording. Whereas instead Ethereum, it's a platform. It's a platform that lets you make a lot of stuff. It's owned by Vitalik Buterin, which is the actual creator of it. So this could be considered more of a company that takes people under, working as singular or companies themselves, to just raise the bar of what Ether can do. There is different ways of voting within the implementations. For Bitcoin and for Ether, they are slightly different, but this we can talk about it in another video as well. I hope that this helped, and if you have any question, like, don't be shy and just leave a comment below. I will be answering myself. Thank you very much for watching. Much more to come. See you next video.